I'm just grateful to Almighty God. You know, this topic that you have gone into, I don't know. It is. I hope I can stretch you because I'm stretching myself and I'm demanding more of myself with respect to just my own feelings towards this matter of faith. There is a certain level where we can accept the mundane, where we can accept just the ordinary levels to which we understand it, and therefore where we can operate at a certain realm that is comfortable and we are within a certain comfort zone. I hope tonight I can kind of challenge somebody beyond that space and beyond that acceptance of the normal, and to render us a little. So if at the end of the day you feel a little bit uncomfortable, then that is good, because it is this discomfort that will drive change. It is when we start to look with a different mentality on the things that we took for granted, that we are challenged, we start to challenge ourselves for the tomorrow to be indeed better than what yesterday was. So for where we're going to rank higher than where we're coming from, and where the comparative issues, where the expectations are much more powerful and greater than our experiences, and also and destiny is before us, and destiny calls much 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 louder where we're going than where we're coming from. These are easy things to say, but in practice these are things that are critical that we do. Otherwise, if it turns out that your past is calling to you louder than your future, you're in danger of becoming, as the Lord warned, like Lot's wife. On our way out of Sodom, on our way out of a place of destruction, being pulled towards safety, being pulled towards a tomorrow that granted immunity from the destruction that was taking place in Sodom. While she was being physically pulled forward, her mentality was left in Sodom. And therefore, she had a conflict. She was conflicted. Her forward momentum got cancelled out by her backward vision, if you look at it that way. Her net forward motion became zero. When you have a net forward motion of zero, it means you have stopped moving. You become a statue. You become petrified. You become, the Bible describes her, a pillar of salt. No, don't dismiss this too quickly, because herein is the explanation why there can be people in the church for 20, 30, 40 years who have not moved. Same little testimony from 1985, 1995, same little level to which they have accomplished. They have not gone any further, because while on the scale of time, we have been forced to move because time waits for no man, and therefore, whether we like it or not, the years are passing. Whether we like it or not, we can say, go back, gray, don't come out, I'm not ready for you. Wait another 10 years. It doesn't work that way. Time forces us on a certain plane. But time may be moving us along, but our focus is not on where we are being moved, but on where we're coming from. The pain of yesterday, the bitterness of yesterday's failure, the challenge of what went wrong in our past, and as a result, it cancels out where we're going. And for many people, you have a net forward motion of zero, and you have not moved. And so the Lord actually knew this is possible, which is why he warned us, don't be like Lot's wife. Why did he warn us? Why did he pull that example? Because it is possible for us to be like Lot's wife. We can be petrified. We can become statues in the church. We can become monuments in the church. We can become solidified in our positions. We become calcified. People can chisel you. You're a monument. You are known. But the problem is, are you flowing? Are you fluent? Are you fluid? Are you growing? Or have you become a monument? And this is a part of what the challenge is about. I'm sorry, this is a part of what I hope I can stretch you with respect to. And don't worry, I'm not talking down at you. I'm talking to us. So my time spent with you is not to point in your face. It is to lift, it's to put my hand on your shoulders and to say, come, Let us move. Whatever was your last best, whatever was your PB, your personal best of yesterday, can this new day bring us into an arena where we accomplish a new best? And that is why the now of faith is so critical, because it is not just what you did yesterday, it is what is faith doing for us now. The today faith in response to today's challenges. The other thing to note is the Hebrews 11 used as a platform is one of my sort of reset scriptures. You never know, and then when you feel kind of, just melancholic, when you feel a little bit that there's no big nothing, you just want something to just pour back a little oil and wine into your spirit. This is one of my chapters, because what it does, it sort of, it resets me. It normalizes. It takes you to a place where you saw people like yourself going through things like you're going through, who made it. And therefore, some of the excuses that we give, some of the reasons we sort of want to offer as to why we should not go any further, as to why we should give up, many times Hebrews 11 dislodge me, because there are many excuses we could find as to why we should quit. But I can tell you that when you start to go back in the Hall of Fame, you start to look back at the champions of faith, you start to realize it is a book of adversity. It is a book of challenges. But what we note about the book are the overcomers, the people who we know their names because of what they did by faith. And therefore, what it asks me is, so why not you? What is your excuse? Why are you wearing sackcloth and ashes? Why are you, wallowing in self-pity? What about this man? Have you gone anywhere near to what his challenge was? What about that champion? Have you reached anywhere to be exposed and to be as vulnerable as he was at the time he lived? And typically the answer is no. As Hebrews 12 said, we have not gone to the point of our blood being shed. And so this is important, and I therefore appreciate the choice of this platform. And believe you me, I hope I can stretch. Let us start with the definition. The very definition of faith begins with what is an apparent paradox, but yet it is not. It appears, and by a paradox, I mean something that is internally contradictory. It seems that the two things could not be used in the same sentence. Let me tell you what I mean. Now faith, by definition in Hebrews 11, is the substance of things hoped for. That's a paradox. What do you mean, Brother J? Substance, by the very definition, is that which exists now. It is in your presence. So we're imposing on this thing the scale of time. On the scale of time, we have the past, the time that you have gone through before. We have the present, the time that you are going through now. We have the future, the time that is ahead of us, that we are looking forward to going through. So we call it yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That is how we relate to time. That is how we interact. That is how our brains compartmentalize time. And that is what allows us now to really interact with our yesterday through our memory, our today through our perception, and our tomorrow through our foresight or ambition. So we can travel through time. We can travel backwards. And many of you, we need to take you back from out of time that you have gone into your past, but you have decided to stick into your past. And whereas your physical body is in your today, your mind is left in your yesterday. So we need to extract you out of your yesterday for you to have some use today. But we interact with the past through our memory. We interact with the present through our perception. That is to say, how do you see things today? And depending on how you see things, it can affect your quality of life and the level of your faith. So for instance, at the hilltop city of Dothan, the servant of Elisha woke up in his present. He saw a troop of Syrians coming up the city, having surrounded them, and they came with cruel intention, as a military person like to say, with extreme prejudice on their minds, to stop the ministry of the man who kept revealing the secret of the king of Syria to the king of Israel. The response of the servant of Elisha to what he saw was depressive. Alas, master, we are done for. On the basis of the evidence available to him, you could say that was a good conclusion, because unless you can fly, if you're on a hilltop city and an army surround you at the foot of the hill and they are converging up the hill, 3 days of helicopters and 3 days of aircraft, then you have your prognosis no look so good. the tomorrow no look so promising, it does look so bright, because these are men with real swords and real spears, and they have a real order to extinguish you from off the face of the earth. And so therefore, the servant's assessment and perception of their situation was, alas. But when they looked over, the prophet was in another world, another realm. He was seeing additional evidence. And so when the servant was being depressive, he was being worshipful. He was interacting with God to the extent he said, he was able to talk to the servant and said, more be they who are with us than they who are with them. But the servant couldn't understand. So he said, Lord, open his eyes, let him see. You see what I'm going, brethren? Many of us are wallowing in self-pity. We are singing the blues because what you're looking at is one part of the evidence available to you. It is faith that will cause you to look at the other side, the realm of the heavens, to ask whether or not the picture you're seeing is a total picture. If the pain you're feeling is all that there is, if the pursuing army that is all that you can know. And we're going to go into some of these in some details, including, and I'm just appreciative of some of the voices that were raised earlier. I'm going to rehash some of the points that were raised, including the Syrophoenician, including the centurion, including also just the so-called little faith versus great faith. I want to challenge us because there's some things to note there. But let's get back to what faith is. So here's the paradox. How do you reconcile substance in your today with hope, which by definition is in your tomorrow? And the Bible in its own definition says, hope that is seen, that is to say that is present, already been experienced, is not hope. So the hope by definition must reside in tomorrow. But substance by definition reside now. The combination of this is what faith is. What is it telling us? Let us stretch it further. It also deals with the visible versus invisible. So it challenges us about the evidentiary issues that are not available to be perceived and to be seen and to be embraced, nor to be touched. But you have got to still accept it as evidence. Even if you can't see it, or feel it, or smell it, or sense it in the broader context. What is at work? Let me just narrow it down to and let me simplify it in the best way I can and my own understanding, and this is what I walk by. Faith collapses time. Faith strips us from out of looking at things in the context of past, present, and future, and simply look at now. So faith brings us into the realm, the so-called eternal present. Oh my goodness. It is faith that forces us to ask a different set of questions when we face what we face, feel what we feel, and we're going through what we're going through. Lord, is the question I ask. Can I see what you see? Because if I make the judgment on the basis of what I see, I may be wrong. Because my sight, my perception is imperfect. It is limited. But yours is limitless, and you see the big picture. And indeed, that is a solid foundation, because in Romans 4 verse 17, it tells us, it is he that calleth things which be not as though they were. What is that play? It is collapsing time. So things which have not happened yet, futuristic, it treats it as it's already happened, and it is now settled in your past. And so my own presentation to you of how do you think of this thing called faith? It is when you look at the things you are expecting as if it happened already. It is when you see hope coming into your today that you define it as a substance. In other words, it is when you move from the place of in approaching God and in worship, from where you say, Lord, beg you, beg you, beg you in petition, to where you say, Lord, thank you, thank you, thank you in acceptance. Let me say it again. And it touches us in so many different ways. Some of us have some issues that are awaiting us Monday morning on your job. You can be in the mode where you look at Monday is to come, and therefore you're begging God for something. So you're making petition. Oh God, I beg you, I beg you, I beg you. And they are looking forward to an answer to come. Or you can move to another place where you say, Lord, I have made petition. And know for what you have done. Monday not come yet. But you say, Lord, for you, Monday is not to come. Monday is. Because time for you is not how we see it. You sit in the eternal present. You call the end from the beginning. So you know Monday, and you're already intimately acquainted with Monday on Saturday. And so you speak of things Monday as if it is happening or has happened. Whereas my interacting with Monday is to ask for it as I await passage through Sunday, and then whatever time on Monday before the thing happens. The no faith of your challenge. My sister Juanita and my brother Alton. It is your challenging us to collapse time. You're challenging us to redefine how we see and judge things. The things we embrace versus the things that are nebulous and are in our tomorrows. Hope is no longer only resident in tomorrow, but hope can also be our companion in tribulation. No hope can be our companion, can be speaking up within our ears. Keep on keeping on. It is not what it feels like. The pain is only an experience. It's not a state. It's an event, but it will pass. And when it does, weeping will no longer dominate. It endures for the night, but there is the day coming. Joy comes in the morning, and with the breaking of the morning, with the breaking of the day, comes joy. The thing that you are feeling after is believable even if you cannot touch it or feel it or smell it. But faith causes you to touch it, to feel it. Because faith causes something to emerge in your mind's eye, where you see yourself, a little child, little George, still in high school, where he sees himself wearing a surgical garb. He has not yet gone to med school, but he sees himself going to attend to patients on the ward. He sees himself carrying on neurosurgeries, and he starts to live in it. He starts to embrace the self-image. He starts to embrace this position, and he starts to walk in this position. What is the result of doing that? He now spends time studying now because he's a neurosurgeon. It's not to be. He has gone past the to be. It is only a matter of time. It is not if, it is when, because he has already executed a thought. And in that thought, he's carrying out neurosurgeries. So what is he doing now? He's just going through the process. He's preparing for the moment already established. The now. And this, my brothers and my sisters, is a big part of the challenge as we aspire to the Hall of Fame. And this is not just vague, because can I remind you of something? If you read through the New Testament books, you will notice that of all the books you encounter, the book of Acts did not end with a benediction. Let it soak. Let's go back over it. The book of Acts did not end with a benediction. So we ask why? Simply because it never ended. It's been written. It is still being written. What we read in the word is what took place, the actions of the Holy Ghost in the church in the first century. What about the actions of the Holy Ghost in the church in 2021? Who is writing that? So here we have the book of Acts according to Lyndon. The book of Acts in the life of Juanita. The book of Acts in the life of Bishop Johnson, Oral Johnson. The book of Acts in the life of Sharon Keene. And many of us who are gathered here, having our varied experiences, but all are contributing to the summary statement of the state of affairs of the church at this time, according to the workings of the Spirit of God here and now. So we have an equal opportunity to be a part of the Hall of Fame, because time would have failed him to speak of. So there is space left for those of us living now. And what we face in a pandemic, and how we had to back away and come up with new ways of worship, even when we could not physically gather in buildings, even when we had to face and contest the challenge of the pandemic, the thing raging through our countries that turned everything upside down. But it gives us a new opportunity to be better than we were. Because now we realize life is fragile. Now we realize we can't take things for granted. Now we realize things are not as the things some of us call priorities are really of little importance. And so many of us were chasing the good life. We're trying for this, and all of a sudden we find that people with far more wealth than we could ever dream, they couldn't save themselves. The money could not buy them health, could not buy them love in relationships. We have seen in some instances that the recently did announce, man of multi-billion-dollar note, himself and his wife, Bill Gates, they're divorcing after these many years of marriage with all their billions. So what will now faith do to us in this time space? All right, let me touch something else as we stretch a little. In Hebrews 11, verse 13, so many of the opportunities there, many of the examples there, many of us are very familiar with. But in verse 13, I just want to bring your attention, because I just want to, and I'm not going to, we could spend the whole night on this one verse because of what is in it. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to sum it so that you can go into it in your devotionals. You can meditate in it a little bit more and therefore flesh out some of the things here. But in Hebrews 11, verse 13, it said, these all died in faith, not having received the promises. And then it gives what I now call the progression. There is a certain sequence that we need to understand and observe if we're going to move from vision to reality, from the faith that is nebulous and philosophical to the faith that is practical and accomplishing. Let me repeat, because many people speak of faith in the philosophical sense, and their relationship with faith is through Joshua and through Moses and through David and the killing of Goliath, but they do not see themselves reaching the place of having a sling, or they do not see themselves tearing a lion, with a jawbone of an ass. They do not see themselves surviving the fiery furnace or going through the lion's den, because they see faith as the prerogative of a character in Hebrews 11. But our challenge is how faith becomes our prerogative. So it's not just the faith, but no, my faith. So what is this progression? There's a set of gem. We're going to drill into verse 13, because underneath it are some precious stones. There's a progression here. They saw it afar off. If you're making notes, write down vision. Your first encounter is going to be with destiny. It's going to be this thing of vision. Do you see what I see? But you will see it from afar. The shape is vague. The outlines are blurred, but you have a sense for what it is, but not for the details of what it is. How do we move from seeing it afar off to get closer? The next step is to be persuaded. We call that conviction. If you are talking about faith without conviction, then faith will always be merely an argument. It will merely be philosophical. So you will have you can wax eloquent in talking about faith. But until faith convicts you, it comes no closer than a nebulous image. It's like a column of smoke on the mountain over yonder. It is far away. It is ill-defined. You can vaguely tell it is there, but it is not sharp. It is not defined. It don't capture your imagination. It don't wrap itself around you, because it is outside of your immediate reach. For you to move towards faith and exercising the thing, you've got to know, move vision from afar off and let that vision convict you and persuade you. How will it do it? You must interact with vision. Oh, Lord of mercy. Vision cannot merely be something you dust off in a book, a journal that you wrote down, and once a year, every first of the year, you dust it off to remind yourself of what you never did last year. So I'm challenging you to the place where vision is what occupies you. You interact with it. It is talking to you. You talk back to it. It embraces you. You hug it back. It thump you. And you thump back after it. Because it is something that is real to me. So you can start to smell it. Because it tells you it is real. And because you're convicted with vision, the next time we see you, you now embrace the same thing you first saw afar off. How did the thing move from being afar off into your bosom? You were convicted, and that conviction brought you into intimacy with destiny. For many people, they lack conviction. So they come to church out of tradition. They don't come to church out of conviction. They worship because the leader says, lift your hands. They don't worship because they feel God has been good. They pray because the church set up a schedule. But do you really pray when you are given the choice? Do you spend time talking to him when you could have been doing something else? And you're not under the pressure of the judgment of the church? So let's go back to the progression. First, you see it afar off. Second, it convicts you. Thirdly, because of conviction, it is now in your bosom. So now interaction changes because you can smell it. You can look at the shape, the form. You can tell the texture of vision. You can turn it upside down. Somebody flip it wrong side, and yet you can still describe your vision because you are so acquainted with it. If they wake you up something in the middle of the night, you ball out vision because you are dreaming about it, you're interacting with it, you're describing it, left side, right side, left, upside down, downside up. You can turn it around and you still recognize it. You recognize it by the texture, by the smell, you recognize it by the shape, by the form, by the color, and all kind of things become real, that the vision is now substantive. And you define it with respect to these things: its volume, its shape, its size, its texture, its density. How heavy is the vision? How light is the vision? Does it cause it to be lifted and to float as a parachute? Or does it keep you grounded that you need to excavate it because it's a column that will hold up a building? And the final step in the progression is when look at what takes place. It is first external, far away. Then it becomes external, but convicting. Then it is still external, but in your embrace. And in the final step, it is now internal. The vision is no longer outside of you, Sister Wani. It is now inside of you. How do we know? Because it's coming out of you. What do you mean, Brother Jay? Then what is your confession? What is your testimony? The confession. They confess. For you to make the confession, the thing is not coming outside of you, from your inside to the outside. So we see where the thing moved from the outside to the inside, and now back from the inside back to the outside via your testimony. This be the progression that faith takes us on. And if you're not spotting where you are in the sequence, then this is a good part of why your devotional become very important, because this is now where we need to be placed. The journey, the process towards greatness, towards the version of ourselves being the version that is the great one, the awesome one, the one that is fulfilling destiny and purpose. The one that brings you to the place where you're not afraid anymore. You're not afraid of being anointed. You're not afraid of operating in your gift. You're not afraid of what people think about you. You're not afraid of what may be going wrong. You're not afraid anymore, even if you're crying tears, but yet you still use the tears as a part of your worship. Even when they fall to the ground and all you have is a groan, you say, God, let the groan be the worship. Let the tear be the sacrifice of an odor of a sweet smell. Let it rise before you and grab your attention. So whatever state you go through, you remain constant. As said David, I will bless the Lord at all times, not all good times, but all times. His praise will continually be in my mouth. And he could not in Psalm 34 say all good times, because at Psalm 34, he was not experiencing good times. Spat out, my Israel. Many of you already know this. He was hunted like a fugitive, a vagabond by Saul, just for being great, just for delivering the country. But sometimes spiritual jealousy will cause people to kill you, even if it is to their benefit that you live. But they just can't live with it, the thought of your greatness, because they're always thinking competition. They're not thinking complementation. They're not thinking of symbiotic relationship. If David's kill rate is 10 times that of Saul, then who is the best person to put in charge of the army? The man who killed at a rate of 1 versus the man who killed at the rate of 10 times 1. Because what then is David the man to establish kingdom of Saul? Yet Saul didn't see it that way. All Saul saw, there is somebody competing with my head and shoulders. If you remember, I don't know why I'm touching this, but let me just elaborate it and we just move fast. Saul was chosen as king because one of his defining features, he was head and shoulders above everybody else. So when you look in the crowd, Saul, they catch Saul at his shoulder. So people felt good to walk behind their tall king. Except that when Saul met Goliath, Goliath was no far beyond head and shoulders beyond him. So when those who were relying on the might of Saul look and saw somebody taller than Saul, their faith in Saul evaporated, because Saul was not showing any great interest to go fight Goliath. He's the tallest one, he's the strongest one, and yet he's hiding in caves. So the people shorter than Saul, what were they doing? They followed the leader. They were hiding in caves too. But we now meet a little boy who is not looking at the size of the problem, but the size of his God. So David accomplished greatly because he saw God, the heavens declaring his glory. The firmament is his handiwork. He saw the heaven being his throne, the earth his footstool. So whereas the men of Saul look up at Goliath, David had to look down at Goliath. Oh Lord have mercy. Let me help somebody tonight. A part of why you are depressed is because you are looking up at Saul. Sorry, up at Goliath, your problem. You are looking up at your problem. You look at yourself and your problem look bigger than you. So you look from your abilities, you look from the size of your bank account, you look from the whatever the health, whatever prognosis, you look at yourself, then you look at Goliath, and Goliath looks bigger than you are. So you say, woe be me. The approach that works is when you look up at your God. David looked at the size of God, and he was in admiration of God. He wasn't just glorifying God. He saw God everywhere. He's shepherding the sheep, Jehovah Raha. He's kicking sands in the wilderness of Judah as the deer panted for the water brooks. And my soul panted for thee in a dry and a thirsty land. He walks past a river with a green bay tree. The righteous shall be like the tree planted by the river. He keeps associating things around him with the size of the God he serves. When he encountered Goliath, he had to look down from worshiping God to the problem. Do you understand the perspective, the perception? This is why when David spoke of Goliath, while the men of Saul were saying, have you seen the man? And they were describing Goliath in terms of admiration, and they were in awe. How did David describe the same problem? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine? David looked at Goliath with disdain. He disparaged him. He looked at him and scoffed at him. Whereas the men of Saul were looking up at Goliath in admiration, David was looking down at Goliath because he was looking at something bigger than Goliath. And if nothing else, somebody needs to change your focus and perception from the size of your problem to the size of your God. Your no faith will always be ineffective if the first thing you see is yourself, and if the second thing you see is your problem. Your problem will always look big and insurmountable. If, however, your no faith takes you to the place where the first thing you see is the size of your God, you don't look at anything after that. Everything else looks small. And as a result of that, all things are possible because of who we are and whose we are. And so this is why David in Psalm 34 had to bless the Lord at all times, because by then he had reached a place where, because of his victory over Goliath, he was an outcast, and yet he had to remain worshipful in adversity. And for somebody, that may be your story. Let not distress be your companion. Let not doubt be your best friend. Let not hopelessness be your house, your flatmate. But let hope and faith be your companions in adversity. And let love also just push you past multitude of differences and cast out your fears. Because fear and faith cannot stay in the same house. Once the one is there, that is to say fear, then the other is unwelcome. That is to say faith. All right. Let me move on. Time is of the essence. Mention was made earlier about this matter of little faith versus great faith. In Matthew chapter 8, we see two stories. And it is so interesting that in both of these stories, I'm just mentioning them. I'm going to pass because I'm leaving you, because there's some I don't want to miss tonight, and I don't want to someone else leave again with the crux of this issue and then move down. In Matthew chapter 8, we have a couple experiences. One was mentioned earlier in our greetings of the centurion. That's in Matthew 8, verse 10, where we see a centurion, a stranger who sent to Jesus for help. This is a man who always have the answer, but know him have a problem to which he has no answer. His servant was sick. He wanted the servant made well, and he realized that in Jesus was hope for this servant being made well. He sent for Jesus to come and to do him a favor. I'm begging you. And a centurion would normally not beg, but he begged. And Jesus stepped out to honor the request. On his way, the centurion had a second thought. He said, why am I bothering Jesus to make this journey? And he looked at himself. He looked at himself as a man, but with authority. It's interesting that a Roman centurion teaches what it is like to exercise authority